Cinemania Field Report, The Birds. During spooky season, the Cinemania Society directs its listeners' attention to films known to have caused cinemania, not only in viewers, but also that afflicted the cast and crew of the production. Some films just have a way of seizing the mind, like a nicotine-crazed pigeon on a discarded cigarette butt. The film I'm referring to, of course, is 1963's The Birds, directed by none other than Alfred Hitchcock, loosely adapted from a 1952 story by Daphne du Maurier. I only saw The Birds for the first time this week. However, as a resident of Sacramento, California, I am very familiar with large flocks of birds. Downtown, you sometimes see crows everywhere, roosting in tree after tree, all along the block. In the suburbs here, you can drive home to find your entire neighborhood infested with crows on every roof and garage, even loitering in the streets. Before seeing this film, I found these strange congregations of birds rather eerie. But after seeing The Birds, I am left wondering who in their right mind would intentionally go seeking out such avian congregations in the name of cinema. I am here to argue that the filmmaker, cast, and crew were in fact already suffering from cinemania during the making of The Birds. Only such a condition can explain the lengths those people went to while making this film. You have to be a little bit crazy to get into filmmaking at the best of times, and no movie shoot goes entirely without a hitch. But the hitch in this case was a megalomaniac British genius who seems to have slipped entirely into cartoonish supervillainy at some point in the process. According to the podcast Behind the Bastards, Alfred Hitchcock was considered a brutal, narcissistic bastard, even within an industry whose default setting was brutal, narcissistic bastardry. The Cinemania began early on with the script of The Birds itself, which required thousands of birds for the story. This choice might seem a bit crazy, but the director's first hire was his art director, Robert Boyle. Mr. Boyle started to tackle this challenge by building and testing model birds. After all, you'd be mad to want to use real birds. Never work with children or animals, they say, and that goes double for animals that are able to just get bored and fly away, never to be seen again. But after investing $200,000 in these models, Alfred Hitchcock decided to use only a small number of models in the actual film. Why the about face? Well, even in 2024, bird models look fake AF, and this was in 1963. And as we've established, Hitchcock was a bastard who couldn't be bothered to give even a microfuck anything competing with his own ego, let alone animal welfare. In the final film, you can still see some of those models in the scene where the lovebirds lean left and right in the car as Melanie speeds around the curves on Coast Highway. Luckily, production still had enough of their wits about them to mix using models for the other birds. But Cinemania was starting to take hold of the crew. Like an angry barn owl menacing a weasel, it was taking hold, oh yes. Once the model bird idea nosedived, animal trainer Ray Berwick came aboard the production. His task, and remember, he willingly chose this job, was first to find 25,000 live birds for the film. When was the last time you even saw 25,000 birds? The majority were for the camera team to film B-roll and optical printing special effects footage. And right here is where this production story takes a hard left into foaming, rabid cinemania. It is no small feat to find so many birds. The team tried to hire professional trappers for $10 per bird, but to no avail. Mr. Berwick and team's random raids into crow colonies failed to catch more than a few, since crows are highly intelligent and alert one another to danger. Presumably in the highly developed bird language of crows, which is a real thing, there's a word for, watch out, Hitchcock production has been greenlit. Finally, Ray located a massive rookery in Arizona with tens of thousands of birds. So dressed all in black at night, Ray launched a stealth capture mission with his crew. After they took out the sentry, they were able to capture the birds with a lot of nets. It should tell you a lot about crow intelligence that it took a World War II-style night ops to capture enough of them. And it should also tell you a lot about Hitchcock's ego. But that is not even the craziest part of the search for birds for the birds. To film some background shots for the special effects, the camera crew went to the San Francisco city dump. Once there, they raked up the garbage and waited for the gulls to descend, which they did. The magic of Hollywood, folks. One day you're on a yacht photographing a supermodel, the next you're raking up the collective garbage of an American metropolis in order to become a professional seagull tempter. Of course, some of the feasting gulls at the dump were also captured and later trained by Ray Berwick and team. In fact, Ray Berwick trained hundreds of ravens, crows, gulls, and sparrows for this film. How did he do it? With treats, of course, and maybe some tranquilizer at times. According to the website Collider, the crew indeed admitted to tranquilizing the gulls perched on the top of the house in the final scene and tying them in place to ensure they didn't take off. That's right, itinerant San Francisco hippie seagulls left the film set more drugged up. To be fair, the crew did also care for the birds too by feeding them birdseed and invertebrates. And under the eye of the ASPCA, the crew even built an avian hospital to treat any sick birds. Aww. Yet at other times, these wild-caught birds would not listen to their handlers, a development so surprising as to be entirely unforeseeable. So birds biting or scratching cast and crew members became quite a problem on set. With all of these beaky, bitey, birdie, bastard castmates, the human actors still managed to power through. Sure, in the most dangerous scenes, dummy birds or models were often used to minimize close contact with the animals, just in case. Case in point, a dummy gull and a rig that blows air were combined with a squib to mimic a gull attack on Melanie while in a boat. Actress Tippi Hedren was quite impressed by the special effects work on the scene, in fact. This might well be the last nice thing she had to say about the whole affair. Yes, poor Tippi suffered Cinemania too, when the crew unexpectedly changed the mechanical birds to live birds for her final bird attack scene in the attic. Well, unexpectedly for her, at least. Tippi had previously been told that they would use mechanical birds for the savage attack sequence, but on the day, they changed the plan and announced they would use live birds instead. Tippi agreed to the change, but this was followed by 5 grueling days of shooting the scene. Live birds were attached to her clothing by nylon threads so they couldn't get away. Gives new meaning to the "I'm not locked in here with you, you're locked in here with me." Even worse, on the 5th day of shooting, one of the birds cut Tippi's eyelid. It was at this point she finally refused to work anymore. After leaving set, she had to be hospitalized for a week due to sheer exhaustion caused by the stressful, unsafe working conditions. Perhaps this was a sinister revenge plot against Hedren? That would be a twist worthy of a Hitchcock film. However, in my professional Cinemania Society opinion, I think we must assume the director and animal trainer had been badly affected by Cinemania to think that it was a good idea for their star actress to endure any of that. Presumably, somewhere off to one side, Hitchcock was stroking a smug white cat, planning to destroy the Western world with his avian super beasts unless his demands were met. I must admit, perhaps some Cinemania from this production led to some very interesting technological advances, however. For example, in The Birds, Ub Iwerks used matte work to great effect. The process takes images from 2 separate reels of film and combines them. Keep in mind, this is 1963 and much before CGI. Iwerks used a new version of blue screen technology to pair footage of angry birds with separate shots depicting frightened actors as if they were in the same location. Some other ingenious ideas from the special effects crew were filming crows in a wind tunnel, then combining the footage with kids running on a treadmill. That's the classic schoolhouse scene, by the way. And for the bird apocalypse at the end of the film, the final image as the car drives away was a composite shot requiring 32 separate exposures. Hitchcock called this the most difficult shot I've ever done. Dangerous though it may be, Cinemania can, on occasion, produce some amazing visual creativity from the special effects crew. But was it any good in the end? Well, yes, it's a classic of that very narrow band of cinema where things happen for no reason and it's all very scary and people are certainly upset about it. And cinephiles to this day are known to take pilgrimages to Bodega Bay just to gawk at the iconic schoolhouse. So while I must warn you, of the almost certain cinemania you will suffer if you watch Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds this October. Perhaps it might be worth the little madness. You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll think it is entirely acceptable to name your child Tippy. This film may be strange as hell, but once it flaps in and roosts in your mind branches, it's there for good. Like, I don't know, some kind of creature that flies and nests in trees. I'm sure there's a word for it somewhere. It's on the tip of my tongue. This has been another Cinemania Field Report. This episode was written by Andrea Palladino with additional material by Andy Slack and Ethan Ireland, and was performed by Andrea Palladino. Music by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. Sound design and editing by Ethan Ireland. Cinemania Field Reports are a product of the Cinemania Society, LLC.